I'm going to talk about physical and psychological injuries. With physical injuries, we always know what to do. We scrape or injure our knee, and often we know to look for a band-aid to prevent it from getting infected. With psychological injuries, we don't know how to treat the pains and injuries. We don't know how to sometimes realize we're injured or what to do to prevent them from going worse. With physical injuries, it is the opposite. We often know we're injured. We know how to prevent injuries from going worse, and we always or often check for our physical well-being. There was, for example, an experiment done with dogs. Dogs had two sides. One was electrically charged, not a painful shock, but uncomfy one, and an uncharged place. First experiment was to put dog on the electrically charged area, and the dog jumped to the safer area. Next time it was charged area, but the dog wasn't allowed to jump to the safe area over a relatively small boundary. And in the third try, the dog was put onto electrically charged area, was allowed to jump over it, but the dog didn't anymore. Now this is an example of learned helplessness. And in humans, the test was people were given an intelligence test. One was passable, the other was impossible, to two groups of people. And after that test, both groups were given passable test, but the ones that had been given the impossible test before did not succeed even at the passable test. Learned helplessness, it's like you can't use your abilities. It's as if you don't have them. Rumination, however, is reflection on painful experiences. Fantasies, for example, when you get shouted at by your boss, could be heroic one where you shout back and everyone agrees with you, or the victim one, like boss yells at you and you break down and you cry, and boss notices he's wrong and apologizes or she's wrong. And the tragic one that you yell back at your boss and then you end up homeless. Those are forms of rumination. It includes expressing, processing and reflecting, but there are two ways of doing these things. There are adaptive and maladaptive ways. In adaptive ways of self-reflection, you ease the emotional distress, lower potency of event, get fresh perspectives, clarify present or future actions, and it helps us move on. But maladaptive increases distress and the urge to ruminate about it. It impairs your problem solving, it might give you depression and eating disorders and so on and so forth. More thinking and more stewing are problems like having a lump in our breast, and then Googling about it, and then asking other people about it, and then asking what if, that is less doing, and that impairs problem solving. Guilt is also very bad. Unresolved guilt, excessive guilt. That signal will not shut off. It's distracting, a mental drain, impairs ability to focus. Minds deal with guilt automatically in their own ways. It can prevent us from enjoying life. It adapts self-punishment. It makes us avoid people, and people who know the people we're avoiding and the locations of said people. For example, if the person lives in a certain area of New York, we may avoid that certain area of New York because we want to avoid dealing with that person because of our guilt. Rejection can create a variety of feelings like anger, hurt self-esteem, frustration, and rejection pain bases itself on the same brain pathways as physical pain does. So given that you go out dating and you pack yourself with Tylenol, a painkiller, you can actually ease the rejection pain. Rejection is so painful because of our evolutionary past. Well, in life nobody survives anyways, but point here is that if you were with a tribe, you had higher chances of survival and procreation than if you were thrown out. And that is why we also, if we feel bad, stressed, or anxious, overeat. We might have wanted to eat as much as we could to survive, but nowadays the human tribe is just so big that we have no reason to overeat because we're not cast out to a lonely island. Loneliness. Loneliness suppresses our immune system and can be considered as dangerous as cigarette smoking. Loneliness can be considered as a weak relationship muscle. When we go out and we have been lonely for a long time and start up dating and we get rejected, then we may conclude from it that we are unlovable, whereas the fact may be that our relationship muscles are weak. We are too tense or suspicious, and our relationship muscles are not regulated well. Loneliness, in that sense that we conclude that we are unlovable, is self-reinforcing. Psychological injuries then damage our emotions and mood, perceptions, thinking, cognition, behavior, mental health, emotional well-being, and also our physical health. There are ways we react to rejection. We may turn to alcohol, we may get angry, being like, I will not be rejected, and we may eat a lot of food. These responses don't often work. We have to either revive our self-worth after rejection or find that we have been worthy people in the first place. Going out in a chilled out manner, being loose and finding that there is nothing tense to get over is a good way, because then you're not setting yourself up for being rejected, but you're actually setting yourself up to feeling that there's no rejection to be had in the first place because you're not trying to get anything. How can we revive our self-worth after losing some of it, in a sense? Well, often positive affirmations do not work. Positive affirmations work if you are a positive person in the first place, if you have positive self-beliefs, but may actually impair self-esteem. Persuasion theory states that when a statement falls within the boundaries of our belief system, then we'll accept it, but if it falls outside of our belief system, we'll reject it. In fact, we might do the opposite. For example, if I feel unworthy of love and success, if I tell myself that I am worthy of love and success, you may actually empower the opposite of it. Self-affirmations here work. You just make a list of 5 qualities that you find positive about yourself, good about yourself, important about yourself, and then you write a sort of an essay or 1 to 2 paragraphs per quality, and in those 1 to 2 paragraphs you talk about why this quality is important, why you value it, why others value it, how you've expressed it in the past, how it may have impacted people, and how you may express it in the future. Doing it mentally doesn't work. You have to do it physically, write it out, because then you can write it in your brain has time to process it, you have time to consciously process it, and it's similar to being hungry and imagining food in your fridge and still being hungry. It's the same with writing here. You have to really do it, you have to get into it. Self-esteem here is like a buffer, an armor, or an immune system. High self-esteem is strong immune system, whereas weak or low self-esteem is weak immune system. If your self-esteem is low and you're very critical of yourself, you can help a friend. You can imagine that your friend says the same self-critical things that you're saying about yourself and ask for your help. Let's say your friend is dear to you, you actually want to help them, encourage them, cheer them, nurture them, and tell them what is great about them and what has always been great about them, or a good quality about them. For example, I could tell myself that I'm a motivated person, or I can list that in the qualities, in the 5 qualities. But yeah, you would write your friend a letter, actually write again, and this is what you're telling to yourself. I thank for this video Guy Winch, the author of Emotional First Aid, and I think emotional first aid is important because when we injure our physical bodies, we treat them almost instantly, and when we injure our psychological bodies, we don't treat them because we have not learned to treat them. And assuming that we want a productive life and a life of going forward, then we have to not only treat our physical bodies, but we also have to treat our psychological bodies. And that's all the best.